I just pressed the Let's Go Live button on this lovely, lovely Friday. And so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Can't be rambling all over the place on this Friday. You know how that would be. It looks like it's on YouTube. That's good. Are we on Rumble? Let's check that out. I think we're getting, I see Celestials is over there. We've been live on Locals for about a minute, and it looks like it's working. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun, deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today we are talking about the whistle being blown. And hey, you can take a look. We've got a new thumbnail that we're testing out here. We're trying out the click-through rate on this. We were doing a test on the other thumbnail, the one that had me in my attorney suit out on the right. And we were looking at the click-through rates, and lo and behold, you guys are not clicking on the images of me. It's like 5% lower. So we're moving that off, and we're going to see if maybe these things get a little bit more click-through rate. So that's why you're noticing a change. And we have this little cartoon character of yours truly. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it matches pretty good. So we're trying it out. And so you'll see that that's a little bit of a change. We'll test it. You know, if it does better, if it performs better, we'll keep it. If not, then it'll change. But that is what you'll be seeing out there for now. But the story remains the same. The whistles have been blown, 2 of them. And yesterday on the program, we spent some time talking about whistleblower number 2. Whistleblower number 2, we don't know who that is, going by the name of Mr. X. And so we read through his opening statement yesterday. And we're going to do the same thing with whistleblower number 1 today. We're going to go through his opening statement, and it's a big, long transcript. The opening statement, I think, was about, 40 pages or so. So we'll get through most of that here today so that we can close out that story. But not before we check in to see what's happening at the White House. Hunter Biden was palling around there yesterday, hanging out with the Prime Minister of India. And that's after news broke that he got kicked out of a club, a Bang Bang club out in Los Angeles. And so it's weird, you know, it's almost like they're rubbing it in our faces or something. So we'll go through all of that. We also have a couple of other stories that are queued up that I thought were great, and I wanted to share these with you. So about, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we had Paul Abbate, the deputy director. He was in front of Congress, and we played a couple clips of him because he was very agitated when he was talking with Senator Blackburn and with Ted Cruz and with Josh Hawley. We played several of those clips. You may remember him. But he is now the subject of another whistleblower who is saying that this guy was literally threatening agents. If any agents in the FBI were asking about the January 6th investigations, if they were coming out and saying, hey, maybe we should look here, we've got problems with how this is processing, he sent a letter, apparently, just scolding them. So an FBI whistleblower, somebody involved, sent a letter to Congress and said, this guy is bad news, and he is FBI leadership. And so we'll get up to speed on what's happening there. We also have a new update in the Trump case, pretty, sizable update. So we'll share it here. Normally, we do updates on our members-only watchingthewatchers.locals.com and YouTube member-only streams, the little updates. This one's big enough that we'll bring it out. But this was a notice that Jack Smith's office filed where they are confirming that they have delivered the first batch of discovery over to Trump's defense team. So, this is going to be a big, complex case. They said that they wanted a very, very speedy trial. And so they're delivering the discovery quickly. And so we'll get an update because we can see here, there's some bullet points that they're going to be explaining what they delivered, what was actually handed over. So we'll go through all of that. And then I had his final story that you may have seen, maybe not. But there was an FBI agent, a former FBI agent that had her own classified documents problem. Her name is Kendra Kingsburry, 50 years old, out of Garden City, Kansas. And she got sentenced to 3 years in prison for hoarding classified documents of her own. We're asking ourselves, whoa, because a lot of other people have classified documents problems. Not only Donald Trump, but people like Pence and people like Biden. So we're asking ourselves, what is the distinguishing characteristic? Because this is an interesting story, and she is convicted, man. She's going to prison, and this was a big deal. Apparently, she had these documents for like, I don't know, a decade. So we'll go through all of that and more, my friends. And as you can see, it's going to be a busy show. We've got a bunch of stuff that is fresh out of the oven, which is why we're here and grateful that you're joining us on this lovely, lovely Friday as we get into it. Now, if you want to be a part of our amazing community, you can join us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's where we have our member-only streams, and we do our regular docket updates where we poke around and we see exactly what's going on with the Trump case. We regularly check Congress and their congressional committee schedules. We see what's happening in the Senate and the House of Representatives. We look at the Biden schedule, see where he's at, or more regularly, where he's not at. And so if you want to join and get more, more of the intimate stuff, join us watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Join us on YouTube, and no matter where you join, don't forget to grab access to our private members-only Telegram group. And I see the chat is filling in. Hey, good morning, my friends. Welcome aboard. We also want to say, have you had your greens today? Have you eaten your greens? You could have, but this is where you would go if you wanted to get some delicious, real organic superfood, courtesy of our friends over at Field of Greens, because Field of Greens is a great place, and we all would like to lose those leftover pandemic pounds. But we're all sick of those ads, for weight loss pills and fad diets. We've all tried them. We know that they don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Not me. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof comes at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight, whatever you're doing. Keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert when you check out so that you can save 15%, baby, on your first order at fieldofgreens.com. Get your real organic superfood. The vegetables want to be eaten. You'll be bursting with green energy. The good kind. Courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. All right. And so let's get into it. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to in various different segments. We'll start off with this one. Hunter Biden found a new club. This time, it's the Executive Office of the Presidency, and he joins the White House in State Department dinners hosting very important diplomats. And this is a curious development because Hunter Biden palling around at the White House comes on the heels of some very interesting news. One little tidbit that we've covered here is Hunter Biden taking a guilty plea, pleading to 2 misdemeanors and having another felony dismissed through diversion in a very sweetheart deal, a benefit that not a lot of other people in America get, but he did because his daddy is the president. We've also seen other whistleblowers come out, and we've covered their transcripts and testimony at length, who have revealed that this deal may have come due to pressure and improprieties taking place at the DOJ, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the IRS, all done under collusion of Merrick Garland, who works for Joe Biden. Very, very big problem. But Hunter is palling around, and we now know that he settled his case with his baby mama, that he's got a kid that Hunter Biden will not bring into the fold of the family. Joe Biden says he's got 6 grandkids. You got 7 there, Joe. We know there's one you don't want to acknowledge, but doesn't make it not reality. And now we also find out that Hunter Biden was kicked out of a club in Los Angeles, a Bang Bang Club. Not to confuse with Fang Fang, who did make Bang Bang with Eric Swalwell. That's a different story. This is a Bang Bang Club in Los Angeles for degenerates like Hunter Biden to attend. And here is what a former founder said about this Bang Bang Club. Apparently the club is called Snctm, apparently short for Snctm, where they remove the vowels. I guess that makes it more attractive to them. So the club founder has been banned after naming Hunter Biden as a former member, because you can't name people who are part of the Bang Bang Club. This guy, gross. He's wearing whatever that thing is. And gosh, he's got all sorts of symbolism on him and all the things. His name is Damon Lawner. He's the founder of Snctm. Has been kicked out of the club. Banned from the high-end club after he publicly identified Hunty as a former member. Gosh, everybody in that club better get checked, man. The claim about Hunter Biden, the president's son, was included in a Times profile of Lawner published on Tuesday. Snctm is a private members club. It prioritizes the safety and the privacy of our esteemed members, above all, a spokesman said to the Times. Consequently, we neither confirm nor deny the identities of our attendees. Furthermore, we uphold strict code of conduct, and any infringement leads to a lifetime ban. Please note that Mr. Lawner's membership has been revoked effective immediately. You can't talk about it. The first rule of the club is you don't talk about the club, The spokesman said Lawner has had no affiliation with the club since 2019. He sold the club for $1 million. He created the club after watching that Tom Cruise movie with a carefully curated guest list and membership fees of up to $75,000 a year, probably paid for from Hunter with foreign money in exchange for American transactional policy quid pro quos. It became the free-loving private playground of Hollywood actors, rock stars, chief executives, city officials, and run-of-the-mill millionaires, and crackhead sons of executives in the White House. Lawner told the Times that he chose to sell the business after it ruined his relationships with his family. You're kidding. In the profile, he discussed the early days of the club, the elaborate masquerade parties. The story noted that Hunter had also reached a plea deal. Lawner wrote in a since-deleted post, he said, Hunter was a member at this club, and I canceled his membership after one party because he's a scumbag. Oh, man. So he's such a scumbag that he can't even be a member at a degenerate sex club. Right. The ownership group now in control, he's in the White House now. I'm pretty sure he's living at the White House and moving his dad from room to room. The ownership group, now in control of Snctm, took issue with Lawner's post. Reached by phone, Lawner said one of the club owners texted him, said, "You're banned." He said, posting what I did on Instagram about Hunter was me letting people know what the type of behavior that he exhibited upsets me. I know the consequences, but I'm willing to take the risk. I literally don't care in the sense that I don't go to that party anymore. The only reasons I've attended any parties in the past, but I'm not interested. Snctm said, as we can neither confirm nor deny the attendees of anybody present, the spokeswoman did not respond to a call and an email requesting to interview the owner. A lawyer for Biden did not respond to a request for comment. And there was another story about, let's see if I can grab this. Another story says that Hunter Biden also deducted the money that he spent to those clubs, the Bang Bang clubs, from his taxes. It's a business expense. We were networking. We were exchanging ideas. Not a lot of talking, but we were networking. This dude is walking around at state dinners right here, this guy. Now it says Biden illegally deducted, wonder if he's been charged with these, tens of thousands of dollars in payments from his taxes. In an interview with House Ways and Means Committee, unnamed IRS investigator details how Hunter went to great lengths to underreport his income and avoid paying $106,000 in taxes by writing off his Bang Bang escapades. He deducted payments that were made to who he called his West Coast assistant, but she was a prostitute. you know, who worked for the agency, he put that on his 2018 return. Another whistleblower, Gary Shapley, who we'll read through later, found several instances where he was expensing flights, right? He was flying them out there. Multiple examples where prostitutes were there having communications. He would pay for them, book them a flight. Even the flight ticket showed their name. The whistleblowers also found that Hunter expensed a deposit for an elite Bang Bang club, listing it as a golf membership. All right. Now, so just so we're clear, this guy got 2 misdemeanor charges for failing to file his taxes. Right. This is, outright fraud. Right. This is it's a golf membership. No, it's not, bro. There's no golf clubs there. Or if they are, they're not for golfing. Right. We don't know what they're doing with that golf equipment there, but there's no grass anywhere. So this is what the IRS has covered up. This is what the photographs, sheesh, on the New York Post. Glad I checked those. They say that he went to a club, and we've talked to the person that owned the club, and they confirmed that he was there. And the guy has to pay $10,000, and the girl doesn't have to pay anything. So he also deducted that from his tax return. $75,000 all deducted. Damon Lawler, of course, outed him, and now he's in big trouble. He's banned from the Bang Bang Club because you're not allowed to out people like that. Now, what we have, of course, is the White House not concerned about any of this. Joe Biden is not even concerned. He's just, no, Hunter's doing a great job, smartest man I know, everything's amazing. In fact, it's so great that as all of this stuff is breaking, as we learn that the whistleblowers have a ton more evidence to out the Biden crime family, as Hunter is settling with basically a child that has been excommunicated from the family, as Hunter has revealed to have been lying on his taxes and writing off his Bang Bang Club fees after being kicked out for being a creep. They invite him to the state dinner of foreign officials. Here's what C-SPAN had for us. As Hunter is schmoozing around, hobnobbing with world leaders. That's Anthony Blinken back there, isn't it? You know who else was in attendance at this? Merrick Garland, the guy who runs the Department of Justice.
Distinguished guest, please make your way to
There's
your
Hunter.
seats. Dinner will begin shortly. Thank you.
Hey, you guys. Hey, don't you give us any grief, all right? You know who my dad is, right? All right, we'll sue you. I'll send you a text later to get that money. He's just, hobnobbing all over the place. Piano's playing. Who else owes us money here? Does this guy owe us money? Blowing kisses. I love you. I'm getting my bag of money. How much do you owe me? 100 grand? This is another guy. Still moving, making deals, I'm sure. Let them eat cake, man. Let them eat cake.
Distinguished guests, please make your way to your seats. The dinner will begin shortly. Thank you.
Hunter Biden roaming around free as can be. Many other people who've done a lot less. I mean, basically zero relative to what Hunter has done, are sitting in prisons all across America. Locked down, under investigation, many people not even convicted of anything, who've done nothing remotely close to this. Hunter's going to state dinners because that's where we're at. And this is a pretty big problem. I think as people see these double standards exist more and more, and this is not just a right versus left thing, right? Talk about all of the complaints that the left had, that the Democratic Party had about inequalities between the police and local law enforcement and all the things. Think about everybody who's got a family member who's sitting in custody for, petty theft or something like that, where this guy has been robbing and pillaging for years. It's all documented on a hard drive that the FBI has had since 2019, and everybody's just sleeping on it in the federal government. And now he's apparently a representative of the United States as he attends these parties. So that's where we're at. It's a pretty sickening display, but this is what the Biden White House and the media is going to continue to cover up as the election unfolds. But fortunately, we have some interesting things that are popping out now. The lid is going to be hard to keep sealed. Whistleblower number one, known as William Shapley, a very credentialed IRS Supervisory special agent who works in the criminal investigatory team, has blown the whistle. And we heard him speak before, but we didn't get a full copy of his transcript from when he sat down behind closed doors with Congress. We do have that document now, along with his affidavit. And this is the document that reveals more evidence about the Biden crime family, because Shapley, along with Mr. X, who apparently, as we know, was a subordinate of his, they were working on the Biden crime family case. They were specifically targeting Hunter Biden, wanting to go investigate his storage facilities, get access and search warrants, go and take an investigation from covert to overt, to have contact with him so that they could investigate him and potentially bring charges, saying no one is above the law. But after they began blowing the whistle, they were outed. They were called and reassigned by the IRS and the DOJ themselves. And so now they're making their voices heard. This is the statement of Gary Shapley, whistleblower number one, who's got the goods on the Biden crime family. Here is what he said. I, Gary Shapley, hereby provide the following statement. I make this statement to supplement the testimony I've already given. He says, beginning in January 2020, I was assigned to work on the Hunter investigation. And January 2020 would be the year of the election. November 2020 is when we're voting. So he's going to be assigned criminal investigation for the Department of Treasury. I supervise investigations, including of Hunter. I continued in that role until I was removed, May 2023, after I provided protected whistleblower disclosures about the mishandling of information, including Hunter Biden. There was conflict of interest that I saw. I saw preferential treatment, deviations from the norms of investigative procedures. And I saw conflicting information provided by Merrick Garland of the United States Department of Justice to Congress related to the independence of David Weiss, the attorney from Delaware. David Weiss, the Delaware attorney, was supposedly this independent person who had authority to do whatever he wanted. Whistleblower says Merrick Garland lied about that. He did not have that authority. Most recently, Shipley says former Attorney General Bill Barr provided an interview in which he stated that information provided by CHS concerning an alleged bribery scheme by Biden was received through the Pittsburgh Attorney's Office and was determined it was not likely to have been disinformation. Barr said it was provided to the ongoing investigation in Delaware. Now, neither I, nor the line agents, nor the FBI agents were ever provided that information that Attorney Barr recently referenced. Nobody checked it out. Prosecutors never provided that info to us. As such, neither us nor the FBI agents working with them were provided the opportunity to conduct an investigation. We requested to be a part of the briefings, but our requests were denied. If IRS investigators had participated in those briefings, we would have ensured that the proper investigative steps were conducted to make sure we were getting the veracity of the investigation into Hunter. He says during a criminal investigation, it is pivotal. All leads are shared, but they weren't here. This is another example of prosecutors, okay, from the DOJ, not even the IRS people or the FBI people, just so we're clear about this. And we saw this yesterday with this other IRS agent. The prosecutors like Leslie Wolf, who have to interface with the actual filing of the charges. These investigators, IRS and FBI, they're just witnesses, essentially. They're just investigators. Then they give it to the government prosecutor, and the prosecutor brings the charges forward. So they can act as the ultimate roadblock, which is exactly what's happening. It is more likely than not that there are more examples of information that prosecutors concealed from investigators in addition to what I've already shared. And so as a result of this CHS information being concealed by prosecutors from the IRS and from the FBI, we were unable to follow alleged criminal activity that we would normally follow. Agents from the IRS and the FBI confirmed that to the best of their knowledge, this information was never provided and no known investigative steps were taken or assigned to Hunter to substantiate it. All right. Total cover-up by the DOJ is where this is coming from. Signed by Gary Shapley. And Gary Shapley also appeared and testified in front of Congress. And so let's go through the opening statement here today. This was part of a long deposition, 212 pages, part of a set of whistleblowers that came forward. The other whistleblower is known as Mr. X. We don't have a name for him. But Shapley has identified himself. Gary Shapley Jr. He shows up to Congress. Bunch of people are present, including lawyers for the majority and the minority, the Republicans and the Democrats. And they go through the normal litany. Good morning. We're here today for an IRS deposition. Gary Shapley is here. Thank you for your coming here. Everybody states their name. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. John, Lou, everybody's here. Now, I want to go over the whistleblower rules, and just so we're clear how these depositions work, we're going to speak clearly, all right? And we're going to cover a wide range of topics. Do you understand? Yes. Is there any reason why you can't tell the truth? No, no reason. And they give him the criminal warning. You know, Mr. Shapley, that if you're lying to us here, if any of this is dishonest, we can charge you with a crime. Criminal prosecution for perjury and making a false statement. Mr. Shapley says, yes, I do. So every time they come out and they say these two whistleblowers are just Russian stooges, point them right back to that. They're here under penalty of perjury. They can be prosecuted. He says, you also know this is confidential, right? Yeah. He says, you know we can investigate this stuff, right? Yeah. Very good. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's begin with testimony. He says, Mr. Shapley. So, thank you for having me here today, ladies and gentlemen of Congress. My name is Gary Shapley. I am a supervisory special agent with the IRS. I've been there since 2009. I've been acting special agent in charge since 2018. Okay, long time, 2009, 2018. I grew up in a little town upstate New York, never thought I'd be here today. I was taught to be proud of this country. Many opportunities afforded to me. There is no reward for me becoming a whistleblower. The only win for me is not being fired or arrested or retaliated against. It's all bad. He says, before October of 2022, I'd received the highest awards available to me at my agency. I was senior leader, assistant special agent of charge in Chicago, highest performance rating that year, which was outstanding. And I was planning to transition to a new position in headquarters for international collaborations. I had led, planned, developed, executed warrants in dozens of countries. I recovered over $3.5 billion for the U.S. government. Whew, that's a lot. And he says, despite all of that work, since October 2022, the IRS Criminal Investigations Unit has taken every opportunity to retaliate against me and my team. I was passed over for a promotion for which I was qualified. The special agent in charge and the assistant agent in charge have sent threats to the field office, suppressing additional potential whistleblowers from coming forward. Even after the IRS senior leadership had been made aware on a recurring basis that the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office was acting improperly, they acquiesced to a DOJ request to remove the entire team from the Hunter investigation. All right, DOJ putting the pressure on the FBI and the IRS. This team's been investigating it for over 5 years. Passing the buck and deferring to others was a common thing. Now, after you hear my testimony, Congress, I believe you will understand why my conscience would not be silenced. My oath of office would have been unfulfilled if I did nothing. I went from a senior leader here to a pariah, and the only thing that happened in between was that I blew the whistle. Now I'm blowing the whistle because the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, which was assigned to investigate Hunter, the Department of Justice tax, and the DOJ itself provided preferential treatment and unchecked conflicts of interest in an important and high-profile investigation of the president's son, Hunter Biden. The mission of the IRS is to investigate criminal violations. That mission can only be met if we all encounter the same process. If search warrants or witness interviews that include their actual names are not allowed, that's a deviation. And yesterday we learned that Whistleblower 2, Mr. X, explained that in detail for us. When they were going to get a search warrant, which is a part of the official record, then they wanted to include Hunter's name on there. But the DOJ said, maybe we can just, redact that out. And Mr. X said, what the heck are you talking about? We've never done that before. The case agent on this case is one of the best agents in the entire agency. Without his knowledge and persistence, the DOJ would have prevented the investigative team from collecting enough evidence to make any informed assessment, which ultimately included even the DOJ agreeing on the recommended criminal charges. So Gary Shapley, the IRS whistleblower, says, I am alleging with evidence that the DOJ provided preferential treatment, slow-walked the investigation, and did nothing to avoid obvious conflicts of interest in this investigation. And for those saying this guy's a hack, he says, I have absolutely no political activities in my past. I vote in the general election and recently voted in the midterms because of an interest in the process for my children, who I took to witness one of the pillars of this nation, the right to vote. I have never given a dollar to any campaign, never attended a campaign event at any level of government, never had a campaign sign on my car, lawn, etc. I have never owned a t-shirt or a hat with any election topic. I vote for a candidate, not the party. I voted for presidents with both R's and D's. Now, I speak on this topic so I can try to head off time that might be spent on it. In the end, a fact is a fact, regardless of the political affiliation of the person who brought it to you. I am hoping the whistleblower process will allow me to give this protected disclosure and leave it to you to make your determinations based on what my testimony says. And I respect this institution, and I have faith that the issues I raise will be considered appropriately. And I beg of you to protect me from the coming retaliatory storm. I beg of you to protect me from the coming retaliatory storm, says Gary Shapley. You are my only hope, and your actions send a message to all those out there that see wrongdoing but are terrified to bring it to light. Prayers for Gary Shapley for bringing this to light for all of us. Very courageous and heroic man. In this country, we believe in the rule of law, and that applies to everyone. There is not a two-track justice system, depending on who you are and who you're connected to. But the criminal tax investigation of Hunter, led by the U.S. Attorney's Office for Delaware, has been handled differently than any investigation I've ever been a part of in the last 14 years of my IRS service. Some of these decisions seem to be influenced by politics, but whatever the motivations, at every stage decisions were made that had the effect of benefiting the subject of the investigation. These decisions included slow-walking investigative steps, not allowing enforcement actions to be executed, limiting investigators' line of questioning for witnesses, misleading investigators on charging authority, delaying any and all actions months before elections to ensure that the investigation did not go overt, well before policy memos mandated the pause. These are just a couple examples. Shapley says the investigation into Hunter, codenamed Sportsman, was first opened in November of 2018 as an offshoot of an investigation that the IRS was conducting into foreign-based amateur online platforms with bang bang material in it. Special Agent so-and-so developed the investigative lead and was assigned to be the original case agent. Foreign-based amateur online bang bang platform. Hunter gets caught in that mix. Then in October 2019, the FBI became aware that a repair shop laptop allegedly belonging to Hunter and the laptop might contain evidence of a crime. Yeah, a lot of them. And you can ask our friends at marcopolousa.org about that. They've chronicled it all. The FBI verified its authenticity in November 2019. They matched the device number against Hunter Biden's Apple ID cloud. Okay? So what a total scam this was. The FBI knew it was his laptop because they were in possession of it. And they didn't release any information about it or respond at all to the letter from the CIA or the former CIA officials, the 51 so-called intelligence experts. So they knew it was true. Joe Biden's campaign knew it was true because Hunter knew it was true. Presumably, Joe talked to Hunter, and Hunter wouldn't lie to his dad, right? So they all knew it was true, but the FBI never told it to us, and they all covered it up in a massive hoax. CIA drafted the 51 letter, and the Biden people told us it was Russian disinformation, and Anthony Blinken colluded with Mike Morrell, former CIA, in order to get it all done. Anthony Blinken got promoted to the Secretary of State position, and now Hunter's palling around at the White House. Amazing. So the FBI was in on it, and they knew it was all a problem. When the FBI took possession of the device in December 2019, they notified the IRS that likely contained evidence of tax crimes. So they also knew it was criminal. The special agent so-and-so drafted an affidavit for a search warrant, which a judge approved that month. In January, I became the supervisor of the Sportsman Hunter case. The group known as International Tax has 12 elite agents. International Tax Crimes Group, the ITFC. Elite agents who were selected based on their experience and performance of complex, high-dollar international tax investigations. Now, this team, including the co-case agent, me, were working closely with the FBI and Delaware and Department of Justice tax in bi-weekly prosecution team meetings. But it soon became clear to me that this case was being handled differently than anything I'd ever seen before. And he'd been there for some time. As early as March 6, 2020, I sent a sensitive case report up through my chain of command at the IRS, reporting that by mid-March, the IRS would be ready to seek approval for physical search warrants in California, Arkansas, New York, and D.C., all locations of Hunter. Arkansas is where his new baby is. Special Agent so-and-so drafted an affidavit establishing probable cause for the search warrants. We also plan to conduct 15 contemporaneous interviews at the same time. But after former Vice President Joe Biden became the presumptive Democratic nominee in early April 2020, career DOJ officials dragged their feet on the IRS taking these steps. By June 2020, those same career officials were already delaying overt investigative actions. This was well before the typical 60 to 90-day period where they would historically stand down before an election. June, July, August, September, October, November. That's 5 months, not 3 months. So June, July, we should be able to go forward on this without the DOJ invoking elections coming up rules. It was apparent, though, that the DOJ was purposely slow-walking the investigation. All they got to do is get it into that window, delay it long enough to get it into the window, and then they're not going to do it. They're going to say, we've got historical precedent to cover it up. On June 16, 2020, Special Agent so-and-so and I had with our chain of command up to the Director of Field Operations, I pointed out, I said, look, if normal procedures had been followed, we already would have executed these search warrants. We already would have conducted interviews and served these documents. But my IRS chain of command said, well, we got to defer to the DOJ. So Gary Shapley says, thus, I became the highest ranking IRS leader to participate in our prosecution calls. We talked about specific case strategies. We discussed the investigation with the DOJ in Delaware. And from October 2020 until October 2022, so 1 month from the election all the way up until 2 years after the election, I was the IRS manager who interacted directly with David Weiss. So he's a direct witness to this investigation, just so we're clear. This is not hearsay stuff. It's not, 5 times removed. Individuals at the DOJ, he was there. Even after investigative steps were denied, enforcement operations were rejected by the DOJ, leading to the election of November 2020. We continued to obtain further leads in Hunter's case and prepared. In August 2020, so just months before the election, we got the results back from an iCloud search warrant. Unlike the laptop, these came to the investigative team from a third-party record keeper and had a set of messages on it. The messages included material we clearly needed to follow up on. Not good. Nevertheless, the DOJ prosecutors denied investigators' request to develop a strategy to look into the messages, and they denied the investigators' suggestion to obtain location information to see where the text came from. One example, we obtained a July 30th, 2017 WhatsApp message from Hunter Biden to Henry Zhao. Henry Zhao. Let's see who this individual is. Chinese official. New York Times has something on this. They say they don't have much information on this Zhao fella. They say Zhao is a Chinese businessman. And here is what the text message says. I am sitting here, Henry Zhao. I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or a text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. That's Vice President Joe, because this was 2017. He was there with Barack Obama. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father, leveraging the power of the vice presidency in some deal with Henry Zhang, and the chairman. Communications like these made it clear, says Gary Shapley, the IRS whistleblower, that we needed to search the guest house at the Biden's Delaware residence where Hunter Biden stayed. In September 2020, before the election, we had a prosecutors meeting. The assistant U.S. attorney who we saw yesterday, Leslie Wolf, told us there was more than enough probable cause for a physical search warrant there. But the question was whether the juice was worth the squeeze. Is the juice worth the squeeze? When the president, vice president, and the current presidential candidate and his son are engaging in quid pro quos and bribery with foreign businessmen? Yeah. The juice is worth the squeeze. That's your entire job, Leslie, is to apply justice. She continues, she says that optics were a driving factor in the decision on whether to execute a search warrant. You don't go raid the Bidens, okay? You only raid the Trumps. She said a lot of evidence in our investigation would be found in the guest house of former Vice President Biden, but said there is no way we will get that approved, right? Judges won't approve something like that. You have multiple IRS, FBI, DOJ people working on this case for years. But when it comes time to get a warrant for them, sorry, no go. It's too much, it's kind of a problem because it's our candidate. It's our Democratic candidate. And let's be clear about this. Joe Biden was running for president at this time, all right? September 3rd, 2020. He was running for president. They're prosecuting Trump now when he's running for president. Same situation. But the FBI is not going to go and implicate Vice President Biden in any way. Only Hunter. The double standards here are insane. And this is why Gary Shapley and Mr. X are heroes for bringing this to our attention. The prosecutors even wanted to remove Hunter Biden's name from electronic search warrants and other document requests. Special Agent so-and-so said that he felt uncomfortable with removing his name. That's unethical. His concerns were ignored. DOJ tax attorney Jack Morgan said, doing it without Hunter's name would still get us, most of the things we want. But I've never understood to be part of an investigation where most was sufficient. On September 3rd, the slow-walking process continued. Leslie Wolf, again from the DOJ, stated that a search warrant for emails for Blue Star Strategies was being sat on by OEO. That's the DOJ office. He says, actually, I don't even know what it means, the acronym. Yeah, nobody knows. Yeah, there's so many acronyms, nobody even knows, right? He's been there for what? Since 2008, 2009, no idea what it means. OEO, don't even know what it means. I don't know what it means either. And I'm sure probably the OEO people don't even know what it means because this is the government. But she indicated that this warrant is likely not going to get approved. Because it's being covered up. This was a significant blow to the FARA piece of the investigation. You don't get your warrant. On September 4th, Deputy Attorney General Donahoe issued a cease and desist. See that? A cease and desist of all overt activities due to the coming election. So they delayed it long enough to get it into the election window. September hits. He goes, oh man, perfect. September, October, November, that's our 60-day window. Now I've got a precedent here. So stop all your investigation. Don't release anything. You're all stopped. U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf made several odd statements as well. She included saying that the DOJ was under fire and that it was self-inflicted. What does that mean? She stated that the DOJ needed to repair their reputation. What does that mean? Maybe they're upset because in 2016, they helped to discuss and cover up the Hillary stuff. Remember in 2016, James Comey and the DOJ, they had a very similar situation where Hillary Clinton, as a presidential candidate, was alleged to have been involved in all sorts of criminality, including her classified documents problem. And when James Comey came out and contorted himself into a pretzel to not charge her, he changed the criminality from being grossly negligent, which would have necessitated charges, into extremely careless, which doesn't fit the statute anymore, even though the conduct is the same. They said that that may have been enough to deviate Clinton from winning the election. And so the DOJ was destroyed. FBI was destroyed. They were not going to be responsible for this again. Now their new candidate, Joe Biden, has very similar allegations of criminality. In this case, it involves Hunter, and it involves Joe's access when he was vice president. The text message implicates Vice President Joe, who is now, at this time, September 2020, their candidate. So they need to repair their reputation, okay? The DOJ is under fire. You're not going to let us, if we bring this stuff to light, we're going to get Trump elected again, is what they're saying. At the next prosecutors meeting, September 21st, the FBI tried to dictate that we only do 5 of the planned interviews so FBI management could reevaluate if they want to continue assisting, all right? Because they're not going to come out and implicate Joe Biden again. They already did that with Hillary in the months leading up to the 2020 election, and they got blamed for losing this. Special Agent so-and-so said, you know, it seems inappropriate for you guys to dictate, the FBI to dictate to the IRS who we should be interviewing. Later that day, I learned that the FBI case agent in Delaware had only recently moved back to his hometown of Wilmington with his wife and family, and he was concerned about the consequences for him and his family if they conducted those sensitive interviews and if they executed a search warrant on Biden's guest house. So the FBI case agent, they also throw in Delaware. They know that everything in Delaware is controlled by Biden. He's been in charge there for the last 30 years. FBI agent is worried about his family. So then Gary Shapley emails Attorney Wolf from the DOJ. He says, hey, Leslie, we need to talk about the computer, all right? It appears the FBI is making certain representations about the device. And the only reason we know what is on the device is because of the IRS affiant search warrant that allowed us to get access to the documents. Says if Durham also executed a search warrant on the device, we need to know so that my leadership is informed. My management has to be looped into whatever the FBI is doing with the laptop. It is IRS's responsibility to know that. Let me know when I can be briefed on this issue. So he sends that to the DOJ. IRS sends that to the DOJ. They're not going to like that email. My email led to a special meeting on October 22nd with the prosecution team and the FBI's computer analysis team to discuss the Hunter laptop. We once again objected that we still had not been given access to the laptop. So they're not even going to let IRS investigate it, even though they know it's Hunter's and they have an open investigation into Hunter. Incredible. Special Agent Redacted asked about the full filter review copy of the contents. And remember, they were pulling out, Hunter's a lawyer, so they pulled his contents out, gave it to a filter team so that if there were any client files on there, they weren't looking at the client files. They only want to go into Hunter's personal stuff, not his attorney-client privilege stuff, because that is very sacred. Unless, again, you're Trump, then the DC courts will just shatter that with no problem. So he stated that he had not been provided with the data. Leslie Wolf also stated that she would not have seen it because, for a variety of reasons, prosecutors decided to keep it from the investigators. No reason why. He says, this decision is unprecedented in my experience. Why? Don't know. Investigators assigned to this investigation were obstructed from seeing all of the available evidence. It's unknown if all the evidence in the laptop was reviewed by agents or prosecutors. No idea. So based on guidance provided by the prosecutors on a recurring basis to not look into anything related to Biden, there's no way of knowing if evidence of other criminal activity existed concerning Hunter or Biden. They just covered the whole thing up. Prosecutor Leslie Wolf acknowledged there was no reason to believe that any data was manipulated on the devices by any third party. Yeah, there goes your Russian influence manipulation line. She further supported this belief by mentioning that they corroborated the data with other sources of information received. And when Tony Bobulinski came out in the October of 2020, this was all being corroborated at that time because we had public sourcing that could match up the dates in the emails to the news reports of where Joe Biden was traveling. Also, on October 22nd, 2020, just weeks before the election, on a prosecutor team call, Leslie Wolf, the U.S. attorney, stated that United States Attorney David Weiss had reviewed the affidavit for a search warrant of Hunter Biden's residence, and he agreed probable cause had been achieved. Which means you submit it to a judge, judge signs off on it, let's go. Even though the legal requirements were met and the investigative team knew evidence would be in these locations, Leslie Wolf stated that they would not allow a physical search warrant on Hunter Biden. Why? Why? The case agent and I raised the issue to IRS leadership continually, including January 16, 2020. I stated, DOJ Tax has made a concerted effort to drag their feet concerning conducting search warrants and interviewing key witnesses in an effort to push those actions to a time frame where they can invoke the DOJ rule of thumb concerning affecting elections. Exactly. They just delay, get it into the election window and squeak through the election. No follow-up questions were asked and no action was taken by IRS. Because the 2020 election was contested, our original plan to go overt on November 17th was also delayed. The DOJ pushed back against the day of action because they did not want to approach Hunter while he was in Delaware, co-located with President Biden. So even after the election, like, oh, well, it's contested. There's always an excuse to delay. U.S. Attorney, and here we are, it's 2023, by the way, and when they just worked out a plea deal. Isn't it amazing? U.S. Attorney Weiss stated on November 10, 2020, that he had to delay the day of action because it was contested. He also stated that because there was no leak in the investigation, it's not public, primary focus is protecting the integrity, which means keep it concealed from the public. So then we began preparing for our day of action, December 8th. That included document requests and 12 interviews around the country. The search warrant had been rejected by the DOJ, and we included the possibility of a potential consent search of Biden's residence, which was a Hail Mary. Maybe he'll just let us in and look around. On December 3rd, after the election, we had a 12-hour-long meeting at the U.S. Attorney's office with the prosecution team. Weiss came in at the beginning of the meeting and jubilantly congratulated the team for keeping the investigation, quote, a secret. Great job, everybody. We kept it secret. The election's over. Our guy won. He's thrilled. Way to go. We kept this whole thing a secret. Weiss was in and out for the rest of the meeting, but it went downhill from there. We shared with prosecutors our outline to interview Hunter Biden's associate, Rob Walker. Among other things, we also wanted to question Walker about an email that said, 10 held by H for the big guy. 10 held by H for the big guy. Wonder who that could be. The big guy. Joe, we had obvious questions like who was H, Hunter, who was the big guy, and why this percentage was to be held separately with the association hidden. How come? But when we were going through this, the U.S. Attorney Wolf interjected, said that she did not want to ask about the big guy, and stated that she did not want to ask questions about Dad. When multiple people in the room spoke up and objected that, hey, we have to ask that, she responded, well, there's no specific criminality to that line of questioning. So this Leslie Wolf character is a real something. Actively impeding this. Keep an eye out for her. She'll probably be the Attorney General one day. This upset the FBI too. And I'll explain in a moment. The IRS and FBI agents conducting this interview tried to skirt U.S. Attorney Wolf's direction. Hunter Biden was assigned Secret Service protection around December 3rd. So we developed a plan then for FBI Los Angeles, a special agent in charge, to reach out to Secret Service Los Angeles, and tell them we're coming to seek an interview. However, the night before they were going to go interview Hunter, on December 7th, I was informed the FBI headquarters had notified Secret Service headquarters and the transition team about the plans. They tipped off a group of people very close to President Biden, and Hunter gave this group an opportunity to obstruct and approach on the witness. The night before, FBI had notified Secret Service, so the IRS investigators couldn't go investigate. The next morning, when I saw my FBI counterpart, Special Agent Joe Gordon, he was clearly dejected about how our plan had been interfered with. FBI Supervisory Special Agent Gordon memorialized the new plan in an email on the morning of December 8th. That stated the subject and the Secret Service protectees would be given the phone numbers, and I and the subject would call us asking if he wanted to speak with us. So they're going to try to get Hunter on the phone. So Gordon and I waited in the car outside of Hunter's California residence waiting for a phone call. It was no surprise that the phone call Gordon received was from his friend, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Alfred Watson. He said that Hunter's going to contact us through his lawyers, all right? Hunter's not calling you guys. His lawyers are going to call, obviously. They're trying to talk to him so they can ask him questions. Hey, Hunter, what about this email? Hold 10 for H and 10 for the big guy. What does this mean? But now he's all lawyered up because the DOJ and the FBI tipped off his people. We received a phone call later that morning from Hunter's lawyers, who said that they would accept service if you have any documents, but we couldn't talk to him. Yeah. The public news of our investigation hit the press the next day. Now, I can't know for certain, says Shapley, whether FBI's advance notice played a role or not, but of the 12 interviews we hope to conduct on our day of action, we only got one of them. Everybody else got tipped off. Remember, the day of action is when they go out. It's like a massacre. Remember in Star Wars, Execute Order 66 or whatever it is, and all the Jedi get attacked instantly? Same thing. Execute, day of action, Hunter Biden. They go out and they tell everybody, hey, we're here. Good morning. Hey, good morning. Surprise, surprise, surprise. And they all get hit the same day so that nobody's texting each other and syncing their stories up. So of the 12 they had scheduled, one happened. Everybody else got tipped off. It was with Rob Rocker in Arkansas. And it was exactly the sort of interview we expected to have if the FBI hadn't tipped off Secret Service and the transition team. In the interview, FBI agent Rob Walker tried to get him to talk about the 10 held by H, while not directly contradicting Wolf's direction to not ask about the big guy. So Wolf specifically says, you're not allowed, right? I'm a prosecutor. I work for the DOJ. We're kind of above you guys because you can't bring any of your investigations into criminal charges without us. So she says, don't ask about the big guy. So the FBI agent's trying to be sneaky about it. He said, this is a quote. He's asking Rob Walker, the famous email that Tony was pointing out, like the equity split. Can you tell me your opinion of that? When it's going through, 10B ... held by H. So he doesn't actually say the thing. 10B ... held by H. Like, what's your opinion, you know? So, man, he really wants to dig into this. And he's basically asking the question that he's prohibited from asking, all right? DOJ is saying, don't ask about it. FBI agent's like, well, I'm going to kind of be clever about this. Walker answered and responded. He said, I think that maybe James was wishful thinking, and maybe he was just projecting that, you know, if this was a good relationship and this was something that was going to happen, the VP was never going to run, just protecting that, you know. Maybe at some point he would be a piece of it, but he was just more, you know, it looks terrible, but it's not. I certainly never was thinking at any time the VP was a part of anything we were doing. And yet it was clearly valuable for the investigators to ask about Hunter's dad, as Walker went on to describe an instance in which the former vice president showed up at a meeting. Walker said later, right, I didn't think he was a part of what we were doing, but then he showed up. We were at the Four Seasons and we were having lunch and he just stopped in, just said hello to everybody. I don't even think he drank water. I think Hunter Biden said, I may be trying to start a company or try to do something with these guys, and could you? And I think he was like, if I'm around, he'd show up. FBI agent asked, so, Mr. Walker, so you definitely got the feeling that that was orchestrated by Hunter to have like an appearance by his dad at that meeting just to kind of bolster your chances at making a deal work out? Walker said, sure. And any times when he was in the office, or did you hear Hunter say that he was setting up a meeting with his dad with them while he was still in the office? Yes. At any times when he was in office, or did you hear Hunter Biden say that he was setting up a meeting with his dad, with them, while dad was still in office, right, as vice president? Walker says yes. And inexplicably, the FBI agent changed the subject. I can see why. That's really bad for Joe. On December 10th, the prosecutorial team met again to discuss the next steps. One piece of information came out the day of action was that Hunter Biden vacated his office in D.C. Documents all went to a storage unit in Virginia. The IRS prepared a search warrant for the unit, but Leslie Wolf, DOJ, once again objected. Shapley says, my special agent in charge and I scheduled a call with U.S. Attorney Weiss from Delaware to talk about that issue. We want to go and get the storage room. Weiss agreed that if the storage unit wasn't accessed for 30 days, yeah, we can get a search warrant. No sooner had we gotten off the call with David than Leslie Wolf had simply reached out to Hunter Biden's defense counsel and told him about the storage unit. I've never heard of anything like this. Prosecutor is literally calling the lawyer and saying, hey, they're coming for your storage unit. IRS calls the U.S. attorney in charge in Delaware, David Weiss. Leslie Wolf should be subordinate to David Weiss. Now, my question is sort of, did David Weiss, you know, is this like a good cop, bad cop routine where David Weiss is pretending to be the good cop? And so he gets the call. He says, hey, these IRS guys are coming for the storage unit. He passes that off over to Wolf. So she calls the counsel because Weiss can't call counsel. So Wolf calls, listen, my friends, a prosecutor literally calling a defense lawyer and giving them evidence that's going to prevent their client from being charged on a case that the prosecutor is working on is so corrupt, I can't even, it's disgusting. And so this is once again ruining our chance to get evidence before being destroyed, manipulated, or concealed. This guy, it's like Game of Thrones, man. He shows up and is explaining to what he expects to be his own side. And he shows up and they stab him in the back 35 times. My special agent in charge at the time emailed that she would be informing the director of field operations of her, quote, frustration with the U.S. Attorney's Office for not allowing us to get a search warrant. Shapley says, to this day, I have no way of knowing if the documents from that unit were among those that were ultimately provided to our team. This was the second search warrant where prosecutors agreed that probable cause was achieved but would not allow investigators to execute. A clear indication of preferential treatment of Hunter. Yeah, it took 15 minutes for them to get a search warrant over Trump. Bruce Reinhardt out of there. FBI slapped together a search warrant. He's like, great, go get him. DOJ here was contorting themselves. And it's for Hunter. In a briefing that I requested to the director of field operations, investigators mentioned the possibility of blowing the whistle on how the DOJ was handling the case. This was back in 2021. My special agent in charge disengaged and was minimally involved moving forward. He says this same sort of unprecedented behavior continued throughout 2021. He says, I wrote my chain of command this in a memo, May 3rd, 2021. He said, this investigation has been hampered and slowed by claims of potential election meddling. Through interviews and review of evidence obtained, it appears there may be a campaign of finance criminal violations. U.S. Attorney Wolf stated on the last prosecution team meeting that she did not want any of these agents to look into this allegation. She cited a need to focus on 2014, that we could not yet prove an allegation beyond reasonable doubt, and that she does not want to include their public integrity unit because it would take authority away from her. We do not agree with her obstruction on this matter, is what he says. Okay? She is literally obstructing an investigation from within the agency. After we shared on August 18, 2021, multiple times thereafter about interviews that we had planned, Wolf emailed us, says, I do not think you are going to be able to do these interviews as planned. She says, sorry, those require approval from tax. Delays extended through September into October. Then they raised other objections. Part of what we examined were charges made with Hunter Biden's card that might conceivably have been done by his children. But U.S. Attorney Wolf told us it's going to get us into hot water if we go into President Biden's grandkids. So as a result of this behavior, I went to my director and I expressed how poorly the DOJ was handling this case. Despite these obstacles, around this time, Special Agent so-and-so began drafting a Special Agent Report, a SAR, which is a document in which the IRS recommends that charges be brought. But another troubling issue occurred with IRS criminal tax attorneys, known as CT Counsel. They reviewed the document, and one attorney called Chris Steinbrunner worked with the case agent to get questions answered and to understand the evidence. She indicated to the case agent that she was going to concur with all the recommended charges. Feb 9, 2022, tax counsel at the national office reached out to the co-case agent, and they all agreed they concurred on the charges. But then, once they all agreed, it went up to leadership, Rick Lunger, Elizabeth Hayden. And they directed Steinbrunner to change it, non-concur for all charges. Nope, everybody on the ground level concurs. Let's go. Leadership says, nope, can't do it. Supervisors were mentioned and called. And they said, no, it was always a non-concur. We never said it was a concur. And they said, no, you're lying. You're misrepresenting the facts. You changed it. So in a documented exchange, somebody sent Steinbrenner, and Steinbrenner corrects herself. Did you know that they were saying that it's always been a non-concur? Steinbrenner says, what? No, I sent them a yellow light. You were wrong. You got it wrong. I always said it was a yellow. Now, so she just changed her opinion. Steinbrenner sent it forward with a concur for all charges, and all 5 members concurred. Goes up to leadership. Leadership says, hey, Steinbrenner, change that back down into a non-concur. She says, no problem, I'll do that, no problem. Shapley says, wait a minute, you already told me it was a concur. She says, no, I didn't, you're crazy. So she's literally gaslighting him. He says, I have no idea why anybody would provide false information on this topic. Since the counsel is only advisory, the IRS sent the SAR to tax. Now, at some point, Leslie Wolf supported charging Hunter for various charges, and there was a 90-page memo recommending prosecution. But we had to fight over venue. Where is the appropriate place to bring charges? DC, California. One of those two is correct, not Delaware. I requested to bring this case in DC, but I was denied. Tax telephoned the case agent, and a couple of days later, Mark Daly called the case agent back and told him that President Biden appointee for DC, Matthew Graves, personally reviewed the report and did not support it. We in the IRS didn't realize at the time that there was no ability to charge there. Then Merrick Garland appeared in front of Senate Appropriations. Bill Hagerty asked him, how can we be confident in you, Merrick, that you're doing an investigation properly into Joe Biden and his son? He said, well, because we put the investigation in the hands of a Trump appointee, right? That's David Weiss, who they kept, who is the U.S. Attorney for Delaware, and because you have me as Attorney General, who's committed to independence. Yeah, right. We believe you, Mayor. The Hunter Biden investigation is being run and supervised by Delaware. He's in charge of this investigation. There will not be any interference of any political or improper kind. But we already know now that Biden's U.S. Attorney, Matthew Graves, did not support the investigation. But the DOJ said and led us to believe that David Weiss had special authority to charge in this case. I was under impression that they were still investigating him. But no, the answer was no. Weiss told them that he could not charge those years. The process meant that no charges would ever be brought in DC. The statute of limitations would already expire. They just kicked it down the road. 2014, 2015 were too old. The years in question include, these are important years, foreign income from Burisma, right? That's why those have to expire. And a scheme to evade his income taxes through a partnership with a convicted felon. So those years have to go away. There were also potential charges from FARA relating to 2014 and 2015. Those purposeful because those are the Obama years, right? Trump came in 2016. So they got to just push. The purpose of exclusion sanitized the most substantive criminal conduct and concealed material facts, which is why they didn't want him in. It's so gross. Hunter still has not reported approximately $400,000 from his Burisma income, has not paid taxes of about $125K. After being told multiple times to amend his returns by Eric Sherwin. And to make matters worse, defense counsel was willing to sign statute of limitations extensions and had done so several times. But because Attorney Weiss had no ability to charge, the DOJ allowed the statute of limitations to expire. There is no mechanism now available to collect those taxes. So Hunter got away with it. That money is gone. $400,000, $125,000 total. They'll never collect because they voluntarily let the statute of limitations expire. May 2022, Shapley says, I got a call from Gordon. He was going to brief FBI leadership. He told me that his field office thought they should push the case to go to a special counsel. I relayed about asking for a special counsel. My director says I wouldn't even know how to go about that. It's common practice for the DOJ for case agents to talk about and testify in court. However, it's much more unusual for management to ask for conversations because it's not discoverable. But in March 2022, the DOJ requested, DOJ asks from the IRS and from the FBI all management level emails about the Hunter case. He says, I didn't produce my emails, but I provided them with my sensitive case reports and my memorandums, including documentation of the DOJ's unethical conduct. Okay, so this guy's keeping notes this whole time. He says, yeah, I'll give you these things you want. Much of that information has already gone up to my chain of command over 2 years over how this was unethical handling by the DOJ. Now, I didn't hear anything back, leading me to believe that no one even read anything that I gave them. He's like, I gave them everything, but I don't think anybody actually read it. So then, in our July call, Wolf told us that the United States Attorney, July 29th, not that long ago, 2022, indicated that at the end of September would be the goal to charge 2014-2015 because they didn't want to get closer to the midterms. Now we're in the midterms now. The X factor on timing will include any delay defense counsel has requested. So 2 weeks later, Shapley says, I learned how the defense counsel felt about the case when prosecutors told us on a prosecutor team call that Chris Clark, Hunter Biden's counsel from Latham and Watkins, told him if they charge Hunter, they would be committing career suicide. Look at that. Wow. Defense lawyers for Hunter Biden said, just so you know, his dad's the president now. If you charge Hunter Biden, you're committing career suicide. You'll be done. Which is amazing. Threatening investigators from the IRS with that. Around this time, there began to be discussions about the remaining tax years. Prosecutors stated they presented the case to California. That corresponded with the same confirmation of Biden's new U.S. attorney. I wanted to present this case to the new U.S. attorney, but I was denied. So now they're changing the guards and putting the right people in the right places in the right jurisdictions. Can I go explain why we should charge in California to California? No. Then in another call, September, Wolf announced we wouldn't be taking any more actions until after the midterms. Again, another election's coming up. It still appeared the decisions were made to conceal the public from the public the results of the investigation. We had another meeting, and it took place October 7th. This meeting included only senior level managers from the IRS, FBI, and Delaware. He said, this ended up being my red line meeting in our investigation for me. Weiss was there for the meeting. He surprised us by telling us on the charges. He said, I'm not the deciding official on whether charges are filed, okay? Shapley is sitting in a meeting with Attorney Weiss, who we've been told, lied to by Merrick Garland, that he has the only authority to bring charges against Hunter. He says, I'm not the deciding official whether they're filed. Total lie. So he then shocked us with earth-shattering news that the Biden-appointed D.C. U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves would not allow him to charge in his district. You can't file here. To add to the surprise, Attorney Weiss also stated that he subsequently asked for special counsel authority from DOJ and was denied. So Weiss also wanted that. Sorry. Instead, he said he was told, just follow the process, which was sent through another Biden-appointed U.S. attorney, which was known to send Weiss through another Biden-appointed attorney. This whole thing was fake. They kept saying Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who reported to other U.S. attorneys appointed by Biden. This was troubling. because he stated if California does not support charging, he has no authority to charge in California, and he was denied. All of our years of efforts to get to the bottom of this would be for nothing. All the massive amounts of foreign money Hunter received from Burisma for nothing. Weiss also told us that the new U.S. attorney in California declined to support charges and would have to request authority again from Merrick Garland. Now, he says, I couldn't understand why the IRS wasn't told in the summer of 2020-22 that the DC had already declined charges. Everyone in that meeting seemed shell-shocked. I felt misled by Delaware. And so at this point, I expressed my concerns. The meeting was very contentious and ended quite awkwardly. He walked into Weiss's office. He says it would be the last meeting I had in person with him. We had one more call 10 days later. Weiss wasn't on the call. In response to questions about subpoenas, we were told no grand jury any longer exists. Sorry, you're done. When we asked about California, DOJ TAC said, I'm not the boss of them. Sorry about that. After this call, the DOJ either stopped scheduling prosecution team meetings or they just stopped inviting the IRS to them. So we disclosed our concerns to Weiss. In May, I produced other sensitive case reports. 5 months later, now they're asking for those reports. They also renewed a request for emails on my case, saying that they needed to disclose or investigate any exculpatory information. But their extraordinary request looked to us just like a fishing expedition to know what we'd been saying about their unethical handling of the case. Oh, they're so gross. So the DOJ prosecutors are now scraping through the investigators' emails to see exactly what they knew about Hunter and Joe. Joe Biden's own DOJ is going and clearing it out. November 7th, the FBI agent called me saying that we've all been requested in for a meeting. This has never happened before. I was shocked at their request. The FBI refused to provide any other further discovery. I shared with leadership how inappropriate the whole situation was. I emailed saying the U.S. Attorney's Office was so eager to get my emails, which they already had 90% of, says I would direct themselves to their own conduct. I documented issues that I would have addressed as they occurred, but every single day was a battle to do our jobs. I continually reported issues up the chain. Now, because they realize I documented their conduct, they separate me out. They cease all communications. Now they're attempting to salvage their own conduct by attacking mine. This is an attempt by the U.S. DOJ to tarnish my reputation. As recently as October 7th, the Delaware team had nothing but good things to say about me. Then they finally read my discovery, which I gave them 6 months ago. I have called into question their offices, and I'm prepared to present these issues. For over a year, I've had trouble sleeping. I wake all hours of the night thinking about this. After some time, I realized it was because I subconsciously knew they were not doing the right thing. But I could not fathom concluding that the U.S. Attorney's Office or DOJ TAC were in the wrong. Man, this guy had a rough wake up. After I wrapped my mind around the fact that they were not infallible, I started to sleep better. And this is a good wake-up call. There's going to be a lot more people waking up. Our government lies to us. They are dishonest. They are political partisan hacks. They are not doing things in the interest of justice. This guy might. But the DOJ as an institution, the leadership, they're not. My choice was to turn a blind eye to their malfeasance and not sleep or to put myself in the crosshairs and do the right thing. My conscience chose the latter. I hope IRS applauds the incredibly difficult position I've been put into. Instead of entertaining U.S. attorney attacks, if they bring up something legitimate, I'm sure we can address it, but it was not intentional. Everything I do is with the goal of furthering our mission, protecting fairness of our tax system, and representing the IRS with honor. But in January of this year, I learned that U.S. Attorney Estrada had declined to bring charges in California. For all intents and purposes, the case was dead, with the exception of one gun charge that could be brought in Delaware. Biden's lawyers killed it. His appointed U.S. attorneys killed it. And yet, when Senator Chuck Grassley asked Attorney General Garland about the case, Garland said, "The U.S. Attorney has been advised he has full authority to make those referrals you're talking about or to bring cases in other districts if he needs to do that. He's been advised that he should get anything he needs. I've not heard anything from that office that suggests they're not able to do anything the U.S. Attorney wants them to do." Merrick Garland lied to all of us. I don't have firsthand information into why Garland said that. I do. I don't have firsthand information. It's speculation. He's a liar. But to all of us who have been in that October 7th meeting, this was clearly false testimony. March 16th, Mark Daly was overheard on his phone by one of my agents. He's the tax attorney, talking to tax attorney. Daly stated that they would give U.S. Attorney Weiss the approvals required if he wanted them, but that he had no idea where he planned to charge Hunter. This indicates that California declined to allow the charges. He says it appears this case was not moving forward until Senator Grassley asked some pointed questions that held AG Garland accountable. And after my first attorney sent a letter to Congress in April, I started to hear rumblings the DOJ was picking the case back up. I don't believe that would have happened if it were not for me blowing the whistle. So shout out to Gary Shapley. They were going to button this whole thing up. He sends a letter to Congress. Grassley starts screaming from the rooftops. We get a little bit of a plea deal. But now the rest of this hatch has been opened. However, on Monday, May 15th, Special Agent in Charge told me DOJ requested an entirely new team from the IRS, and none of the 12 agents would be able to work the case. He says, that seems to me like clear retaliation for my disclosures. And what's worse is after Special Agent Blank emailed the commissioner to point out the human cost of the IRS from them implementing this retaliation, my assistant special agent in charge threatened him with leaking material. So they're being threatened now. And my special agent in charge sent me and other supervisors an email at the same time that said we had to stay within our chain of command. I interpreted this as a clear warning to me and anyone else who might be thinking of blowing the whistle. Shapley says, wrapping up, I did not choose to sit here before you today. I was compelled by my conscience. When the decision after decision has been made to deviate from our normal investigative processes, I believe Congress needs to know this information. I trust you'll do the right thing because we have nothing if I can't trust this body. Lawyer says, sir, thank you very much for your thorough opening statement. That is the opening statement from Mr. William Shapley. Gary Shapley. Have I been saying William this whole time? Gary Shapley, correcting the record. Gary Shapley, Gary A. Shapley Jr. Absolute hero for coming forward, facing, I can't even explain how much pressure is coming down to bear upon this man right here, who has been working this case for years, who has seen and identified mounds of misconduct, and who tried within his own agency to blow the whistle and get everybody to do the right thing, who truly believed in the DOJ, in the IRS, in the FBI. I believe in goodness and justice in America. I believe that nobody's above the law. I work with these other people. They're good people. Surely they believe like I do, right? Wrong. Partisan political hacks. This one being led by the DOJ. Through Merrick Garland, through Leslie Wolf, U.S. Attorney, and all of the other U.S. attorneys who got appointed, including Matthew Graves, which is a name that we have seen in all of the January 6 cases, who is one of the worst in the DOJ at partisan political prosecutions. So we will continue to pray for Mr. Gary Shapley, who is in hot water right now, not because he's done anything wrong, but because he's done something right, because he's exposed the criminals, the gangsters who are running our current government. And he has had the strength to come forward. Whistleblower number 2 has had the strength to come forward. There will be more who come forward. because the Biden's criminality can no longer be covered up. Pandora's box is being opened, and we are looking forward to continuing to cover. Thank you, my friends, for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you're watching it. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. So that was that one. Now, that was the big update on the day. We have some smaller reads to get through. Let's take a beverage break. Cheers, my friends. Cheers to you out there. Oh, good stuff. Yeah. Cheers, my friends, to exposing the Biden crime family, one whistleblower at a time. And there will be much more to come. In fact, we have another whistleblower to attend to right here. Now that we're getting ourselves properly hydrated, and ready for the next segment. Let's get to it. FBI leadership threatened other FBI agents who had some problems with the January 6 investigations. Now, we've talked about these investigations for a long time. The January 6 Select Committee, the DOJ, Matthew Graves, all of the other U.S. attorneys who've been hyperventilating over January 6 since it happened, without really inquiring as to who else was involved or maybe where some of the undercover informants could have contributed to what we saw happen that day. All of that stuff got forgotten. But now we've got a new whistleblower who sent a letter over to Congress about this guy, Paul Abbate, Deputy Director at the FBI. And we have a clip of him being very nasty with Congress because he doesn't like Congress. He thinks, I am a Deputy Director at the FBI. I can do whatever the hell I want. So Wikipedia tells us more about this fella. He's been there his entire career. 1996. Oh, gosh. Get a real job. He was assigned to the New York City field office where he worked in the criminal division, served as a member of the SWAT team, went to Iraq. Then, after President Trump's dismissal of Comey, he was considered for the role of FBI director. Gosh, what a disaster. He was named Associate Deputy Director of the FBI, succeeded by a number of people, and that's a little bit of background from him. So he was in office when Trump was there. He assumed office as the Deputy Director under Joe Biden, and we remember him from this show previously where he was getting nasty with Senator Blackburn and others because he says, how dare you impugn the integrity of the FBI?
Then let me ask you this.
And this is a question about the Biden crime docs, which, of course, we know the FBI was working with the DOJ to cover up.
You said in your response to Senator Cruz that you and the FBI do your job to the best of your ability. So why don't you tell me what your job is? Is it to defend and shield Joe Biden, or is your job to protect this country and the Constitution of the United States?
Defend and shield Joe Biden.
The job of the FBI is
and
to
shield
protect the country, keep people safe, and uphold the Constitution of our great country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, unless you're protecting the country from tax crimes by Joe and Hunter.
So why
Period.
are
That's what we
you
work to
using-
do every day.
it isn't.
Objectively, there are not two standards of justice. There is only one. It's applied equally to
Practically,
each.
Are you on crack here, Paul? Are you hitting that pipe with Hunter? Did you know that your agency was involved in slow walking a very credible, highly desired investigation by your own agents?
And by
every person-
perception, there are two standards, very clear standards of justice in this country. We see it every single day. The American people see this every single day. They look at you and they see a politicized entity that is weaponizing an agency of the federal government against the American people.
That is
They
not the FBI that I
out.
see, Senator.
That is not the FBI. You see, there are a lot of good people that work for the FBI, but you have a political cabal there. So why did you decide to conceal the information in that revelation to the House Oversight Committee? Why did you
The FD
redact all of
1023.
that pertaining to the phone calls?
We have exceptional people within the in
You're
the
not
FBI,
answering the
very
question.
best.
Why did you redact that
And they work
information?
relentlessly every day to keep this
You
country
chose
safe
not
and
to
to protect
reveal
people.
that the
Period.
calls were there, and Senator Grassley found it out anyway. Is that accurate?
With regard to the
You chose to redact it, yes or no?
we often redact documents to protect
So you
sources and
chose to
methods.
redact the fact that there are 17 voice recordings, 2 of those with the now president. You chose to redact that and not to give that to House oversight.
I have
Is
no
that
idea
accurate?
if there are voice recordings or not. What I will tell you with respect to the
You have
document,
no-
the document was redacted to protect the source, as everyone knows.
Yeah, to
Well, then
And this is a
protect Joe Biden.
question of life
My
and death,
time has
potentially.
expired, but
Life
I
and
think it
death.
would be helpful if when you came before us, if you were willing to answer the questions, it would help to remove the perception that the American people have, because this is what they see. They see you do it every day, and that is politicizing the FBI and using it against the American people who don't happen to be named Biden, Clinton, or one of the elites.
Shout out to Mrs. Blackburn there. So that is who we're talking about. That's Paul Abbate, and he is a current FBI deputy director, kind of a nasty guy, doesn't really like Congress asking him questions about what he's doing to wreck America. And we now know that there were a couple letters that went out to Congress specifically calling this guy out for threatening employees who questioned January 6 investigations being conducted by the FBI. This letter comes from Empower Oversight, which works with whistleblowers and research. It goes over to Congress via electronic transmission to Jim Jordan, chairman, along with Durbin, Graham. We've got Wyden, Grassley, and Jerry Nadler, the Waddler. Here's what the whistleblower says. He says, "Dear Chairman and ranking members, recently Empower Oversight obtained the attached affidavit from a federal FBI employee who wishes to remain anonymous for fear of suffering retaliation. We've got a whistleblower now. This guy is an FBI agent." He says the affiant, the guy who wrote the affidavit we'll look at, heard FBI Director Paul Abbate, the guy that we just heard, nasty guy, communicate a threat to all FBI personnel in a video teleconference in February 2021. Abbate had heard that some employees were contrasting the FBI's response to January 6 with its failure to protect federal personnel and property or to aggressively investigate interstate conspiracies and resulting damage during civil unrest and the murder of Floyd. Okay, so they're saying, wow, some of the good FBI agents out there, shout out to those smart and good-looking FBI agents, they say that, you know, this January 6th investigation feels like it's getting a lot more gasoline than what we got for George Floyd. And George Floyd, as we know, was dramatically worse, a lot more deaths and billions of dollars in damage versus like $2.5 million for the Capitol. Not even at the same scale. All right, one is like, 5 deaths versus, I think, 105 deaths. One is $2.5 million versus $2.5 billion. All right, but the entire DOJ didn't, and FBI didn't revert themselves into a new entity for the sole purpose of George Floyd unrest. In fact, Kamala Harris was posting on her Twitter account to get people out of custody who are being held in bail. So FBI agents were noticing this. They're going, wow, this is strange. It feels like it might be political. So after defending the FBI's disparate treatment of the two events, saying, hey, there's no double standard here. Okay, that was racial justice, man. And this is white supremacy insurrectionist. So they're not the same. Even though one was $2.5 billion and 100 deaths versus $2.5 million and 5 deaths. Told the audience that anyone who questions the FBI's response or his decisions regarding the response did not belong in the FBI. And you should find a different job if you don't agree with this. Furthermore, Abbate told all special agents in charge, if they had an employee that did not agree with what we're doing here, the special agent in charge could have that employee call him personally, and he would set them straight. That guy, that really agitated, ornery guy. Don't ask me questions, Martha. So you tell them to call me, and I'll explain to them insurrection. So the affiant, this FBI employee, had observed hundreds of teleconferences with senior FBI officials, but had never seen a direct threat like that at any other time. Abbate's choice of words that any employee who disagrees, quote, should find a different job, is consistent with what other Empower Oversight clients have experienced. For example, an FBI manager essentially parroted Abbate when then Special Agent Stephen Friend questioned his division's handling of the J6 investigations. The affiant believes that the retaliation suffered by the FBI whistleblowers suggests that Abbate and others made good on his threat. You were actually fired. Abbate's threats to employees was witnessed by numerous other FBI employees, and this constitutes evidence of intent to retaliate. This evidence is relevant to other administrative proceedings, not merely those with our clients. This can be corroborated by dozens, if not hundreds, of other FBI employees if Congress looks into it. They say FBI regularly retaliates against employees for expressing concerns. Now, if they belong to any other federal law enforcement agency, they would have more effective remedies. But at the FBI, legally protected disclosures are not protected. The vast majority of FBI employees don't have the same civil service protections as other federal employees to obtain review of actions taken against them in retaliation. This lawyer says, Abbate and FBI managers following his lead are quite capable of carrying out his threat to purge dissenters, and they can remove security clearances. This unreviewable authority to immediately and indefinitely remove an employee's livelihood is an open invitation for abuse, forcing whistleblowers to choose between depleting their savings, relying on charity, or resigning. Moreover, by abusing the security clearance process, so you don't even have to fire somebody. You just say, well, you just lost your security clearance. Well, I can't get into the building without it. Well, that sucks, I guess. That sucks for you. Oh, man. Yeah, so the FBI is capable of doing so en masse with virtually no accountability. It's like, no, we didn't fire them. We didn't retaliate. We just removed their security clearance, which is precisely what appears to be happening. Anecdotal evidence in our experience representing whistleblowers from the FBI suggests that serious scrutiny of the FBI Security Division would reveal not only a dramatic uptick in the number of employees targeted, but an utter lack of professionalism. We know, for example, that the letter sent by Acting Assistant Director Christopher Dunham, May 17, 2023, promptly linked to the press, contained numerous false claims about our client, Marcus Allen. The FBI has offered zero evidence. Conclusory assertions say that those days are gone. The public has more reasons to lose trust in the integrity of the FBI. They say the FBI is not a private club for FBI executives to make in their own image. It sort of is, though. It is an extremely important agency that is supposed to enforce the law without prejudice. And we respectfully request you independently corroborate these threats made by Abbate with other witnesses and hold Director Abbate accountable. Cordially yours, Tristan Levitt, who is writing on behalf of Empower Oversight, whistleblowers who are revealing that Deputy Director Paul Abbate, this guy right here, threatening agents, saying you are removed from the FBI if you dare challenge what we're doing. Not a surprise. The FBI wants monolithic agents who just do what they want and follow the direction of the Democratic Party so that they can continue to act as their little law enforcement agency as they gobble up power all across America. And now, my friends, we've got an update on the Trump case. Before we wrap this up with an FBI agent who's going to prison. And this is a new delivery. Special counsel Jack Smith and his prosecutors now disclose they've given Donald Trump a big batch of discovery. These are case files. This is the evidence that they claim they've got against the former president, and it came in the form of a notice to the court. They told the judge, hey, we have delivered a big wheelbarrow full of stuff over to Trump and his defense, and so you are now on notice that we have done that. And so let's pull up that document, which I thought I had pulled open, but I do not. So let's download this and get our red pen out and nice and loaded up and handy. So that we can read this in full effect. This is the discovery order that came out. This is Jack Smith's notice that he has complied with discovery. The case, of course, is United States of America versus Donald Trump and Waltine Nauta. Coming out of the Southern District of Florida, previously Judge Eileen Cannon has issued a protective order and required that the special counsel's office give Trump the case files in a timely manner. And we covered the prior protective order that the judge issued, and the judge said that this was for non-classified materials and that Trump couldn't even be in possession of this stuff. Remember, Trump couldn't even be in possession of the notes about this stuff. So he can look at these case files, take notes about the case files, but all the documents have to be held under lock and key, and Trump doesn't have access to really touch them or even touch his notes. This is what Special Counsel Jack Smith is saying. Not a long filing, but they do give us some details. This one submitted by Jay Bratt, the DOJ lawyer who allegedly threatened another lawyer for Waltine Nauta with losing a potential judgeship, which I'm sure will be an issue as this case proceeds. But here is what Jack Smith and Jay Bratt had to say. They say, all right, Judge, the United States filed this saying we're complying with the rules. On June 21st, you issued a protective order that said that Donald Trump, on June 21st, let me start that again. On June 21st, pursuant to the protective order, the government provided to Donald Trump its first production of unclassified discovery. They're calling it Production 1, right? And this is not the classified discovery or anything that was declassified. It is just unclassified stuff. These files came in a part of 3 batches. The first part includes documents that they obtained via subpoena, evidence obtained via search warrants, transcripts of grand jury testimony, transcripts of grand jury testimony from Florida and DC, and memorialization of witness interviews conducted all the way up through May. As we've informed counsel, Trump's lawyers, it is the government's intent to disclose promptly all witness statements and memorialization of those statements, even if they would not be deemed discoverable under the rules. And Jack Smith wants a speedy trial on this, so we're going to see how quickly his discovery comes out. The second part includes a reproduction of key documents and photographs included in Production 1 that are referenced in the indictment and others determined by the government to be pertinent to the case. The third part, so we've got number 2 and number 3. Third part, copies of closed-circuit CCTV footage obtained by the government in its investigation. To facilitate the review of all the camera footage, the government also identified and separately produced for Trump key excerpts of the footage, including excerpts referenced in the indictment, other determined to be pertinent in the case. The government responds to the specific items identified in the discovery order as set below. So here are some of the details. In 3 we've got All right, here's the discovery filing. They say the production 1 includes a copy of the following items: a recorded statement made by the defendants, a written or recorded statement, interviews of Donald Trump conducted by non-government entities, which were recorded with his consent and obtained by special counsel's office during the investigation of the case, including the July 2021 recorded interview of Trump provided to a publisher and a writer quoted in the part of the indictment. So these might even be media interviews. Yeah, public statements made by Trump, including public statements quoted in the indictment. The May 26 interview of defendant Nauta, which is quoted in the indictment, and the grand jury testimony when Nauta appeared before the grand jury. Other than the 2 statements of Nauta identified in paragraph A1, no relevant oral statements made by either defendant before or after the arrest in response to interrogation. So no post-arrest statements that they're going to use. Trump did not testify before the grand jury, but Walt did. So they've got a part of that transcript in the discovery. The government provided their criminal records, so their criminal history to both of them. This is we know what you've done in the past. Defense counsel can contact the government to arrange for an inspection of unclassified items seized during the raid. The government is not currently aware of any other unclassified books, papers, documents, photographs, tangible objects, buildings, or places within our control which are material to the preparation of the defense, or which the government intends to use, or which were obtained that belong to him. He says there will be additional productions of discovery, and production 1 does not necessarily include everything, but we'll let you come and inspect whatever you want. In other words, we have some stuff that we're not sure we're going to use. You can come take a look. There were no physical or mental examinations of any of the defendants, Trump or Walt. They're asking that Trump and his defense also respond. Discovery goes both ways. Both sides have to disclose. So Trump, if he's got expert witnesses or something, right, he's got to disclose that to them. The government is providing Brady material based on what we know. We are giving all of that. The government will disclose any payments or promises of immunity or leniency of any witnesses or anybody involved in this case. We'll also disclose, the government says, any alleged co-conspirators' criminal convictions. So if somebody the government is using against Trump has a bad history, they'll let Trump's team know about it. They say Trump and Walt, they were not identified in any lineups or anything like that, so we're not going to be using that stuff. All rough notes from our team have been communicated to be preserved, saying that we will disclose new evidence and witness statements to you in a timely manner. This first production includes grand jury testimony of witnesses who will testify for the government. So we'll get to know more about the mole at Mar-a-Lago. The government did not seize any contraband, like any drugs, for chemical analysis. The government does not know of any automobiles. The government does not know of any fingerprints that are relevant. The government is not... Fingerprints will be interesting on these documents. I mean, you want to ask, especially if we can identify the document that Trump was supposedly waving around. To date, the government has not received a request for disclosure of expert testimony. The government will make good faith efforts to stipulate to facts. And the government demands notices of all of the other filings. Here's our certificate of service signed off on by Julie Edelstein, another prosecutor on the case. So looks like this is just the first batch of stuff, a lot of the basic stuff. And we're going to have a lot of battles over the classified documents. A lot of this I still think is very early, but it is all non-classified. And it's going to be the basic stuff, probably not even a lot of the interesting stuff, because he's not being charged with crimes for unclassified documents. He's being charged with obstruction crimes for obstructing the return of the classified stuff. But we also know there are going to be witnesses listed in here who testified in the grand jury proceedings, but I'm sure that Trump's team already knows who most of these people are. So what is interesting to note from this is that they're moving quickly. Discovery got disclosed very quickly here. And the question will be, how quickly can they continue to move forward? And we'll be keeping an eye out for Trump's responses on this and really what Trump's filings will look like. And so we're going to cover this in detail. If you haven't already joined as a member on YouTube or on Locals, we do more regular Trump docket updates because there are smaller filings that aren't necessarily require an entire segment. So come out there and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, because the discovery is going to be a big battle. Trump's team is going to want to see these classified documents. The government's going to say they're not qualified to see them. And then we're going to have battles over what parts of those documents can be redacted and shown to the jurors. And it's just going to be a big, messy battle. So this case is going to go on for a long time. I don't think it's going to get wrapped up anytime soon. We're going to continue to cover. Thank you for liking and subscribing wherever it is you're watching. All right, my friends, and we've got one final segment on the day on this lovely, lovely Friday before we wrap things up. And this one's kind of closely related to the Trump documents. An FBI agent just got sentenced to 3 years for her own classified documents problem. And a lot of people on the left are saying, wow, if she got 3 years, that means Donald Trump should get 3 years or more, forgetting the fact that she was never the president and Donald Trump was, and a whole slew of other compare and contrast failures that they're making. But it is a curious case. An FBI agent was in possession of these documents for a very long time, and the case is quite shocking. It shows you how ridiculous these classified documents cases are, because they raided Trump's residence in order to get these back, whereas one of their agents apparently was doing something with these materials for a very long time. Now, this press release comes out from the Department of Justice. They say a former analyst with the FBI has been sentenced for retaining classified documents. Former analyst, federal court, her name is Kendra Kingsburry, and she was sentenced to 3 years and 10 months in federal prison without parole. Pleaded guilty October 13th, 2 counts, unlawfully retaining documents related to national defense. And people are pointing out Trump's indictment, and they're saying, oh yeah, he's got some pretty similar charges here. And when we hear people say there's no way Trump is going to serve prison on this thing, this is where I start to get a little bit squirrely on this. I think that if you get this in a DC case, a DC judge, or even in Florida, the government's going to want some jail time. Now, what it actually looks like for a former president is a different story. But Kingsbury was an intelligence analyst for the FBI for more than 12 years. She was assigned a sequence of different FBI squads, different focuses, drugs, violent gangs, and Kingsbury had a top secret SCI security clearance. Oh my gosh. Somebody better call Jar Scarborough over there. Somebody better ring Jake Tapper. Are they going to melt down over this? Is this going to be a chyron on their screen? Kingsbury had access to the top secret, our nation's most sensitive. Here, security clearance, and had access to national defense and classified information. Oh no. Training presentations and materials specifically warned Kingsbury she was prohibited for retaining these classified materials at her personal residence. Could only be stored in approved facilities. But she admitted that over the course of her FBI employment, she repeatedly removed from the FBI these documents and retained them at her personal residence. An abundance of government materials, including documents related to national defense. Over the course of her employment, she took them. And over the course of her employment was 12 years. In total, Kingsbury improperly removed and unlawfully and willfully retained approximately 386 classified documents in her personal residence. Some of the classified documents she unlawfully removed contained extremely sensitive national defense information. According to documents, Kingsbury put national security at risk by retaining this classified information. It could reveal some of the government's most important and secretive methods of collecting intelligence. And she admitted to investigators that she had retained and destroyed other documents over the years that could have contained this info. Destroyed it, like Hillary did. The documents retained by Kingsbury in her personal residence were stored on hard drives, compact discs, and other storage media. The national defense information that she unlawfully retained, classified at the secret level. These documents included FBI's nationwide objectives and priorities, investigations in multiple field offices. She retained documents about human source operations, intelligence gaps about hostile foreign intelligence services, capabilities of counterintelligence. They described intelligence everything, all right? Documents included Al-Qaeda, African, Osama bin Laden, regarding activities emerging from terrorists, and so on. The FBI, now this is where it's curious, the FBI investigated what uses Kingsbury put to the classified documents that she illegally removed. But the investigation revealed more questions and concerns than answers. Investigators reviewed Kingsbury's telephone records, revealed a number of suspicious phone calls. She contacted phone numbers associated with subjects of counterterrorism investigations. Subjects of the counterterrorism investigations. And these individuals also made phone calls back to her. Investigators have not been able to determine why Kingsbury contacted these people or why these individuals contacted her. Case was prosecuted by DOJ. Now, what's problematic about this is they're saying that they may never know what she was doing with this stuff. Nearly 4 years in prison, 386 classified documents. She said she was guilty of being too honest. Now, the New York Times says Trump is facing 31 counts of similar charges. Mr. Kingsbury, like Mr. Trump, was accused of not being helpful. And not being forthcoming. Her lawyers attributed her behavior to underlying events, several deaths in the family, causing her mental struggles. They wanted probation for her, but no. They said she took this extremely troubling documents. And before he sentenced her, Judge Stephen Bowe of Federal District Court agreed with prosecutors that, quote, "We will never, ever know what took place. We will never, ever know what took place." Doesn't sound good. And so there was one final sentencing memo that came out from the government when they asked for their penalty. This is a sentencing memorandum for the FBI agent. They give us some brief procedural history. They say that she's got 2 counts, willful retention of national defense information. The standard guidelines are 46 to 57 months in prison. But these facts are to supplement what the pre-sentence report has already found. They tell us that repeatedly over the course of her employment over 12 and a half years, she removed to her personal residence sensitive documents, willfully removed them, and retained them despite having receiving training over and over again not to do this. She completed 1,640 hours of training about how to handle this stuff, signed multiple employment agreement forms, outlined her obligations and rules about what to do with it. In total, she improperly removed 386 classified documents. The FBI ultimately determined that over 20,000 documents that originated either at the FBI or some other agency were found in her home. Some of the documents were extremely sensitive. They were on hard drives, compact discs. the FBI was able to determine that she had initiated searches in classified databases utilizing the information that she discovered, right? So it's not like she just grabbed mementos after meetings and brought them home. She went into databases and was specifically searching for certain things. They then removed them. As further explained in 3 documents, the defendant put national security at risk by claiming these things and putting them in her home. Some of the most important and secretive methods of collecting national security intelligence. So the FBI investigated this. They wanted to know what uses she put these documents to, but the investigation revealed more questions and more concerns. We conducted a review of her telephone records. She maintained a home. This phone number was active for a period of time. Many phone calls came in. One call belonged to the defendant and other known callers. A review of the calls show the following. In April 2016, she made a call from her cell to the person who was a counterterrorism subject. 5 calls then were made back. She received 2 calls from another person who was the subject of another investigation. So is she tipping these people off? All these calls were 2 minutes in duration. Another phone number was associated with another person, a part of a counterterrorism investigation, got 6 calls. She called another person, 20 seconds, 2018. 2008, her home phone was called by a phone number from a counterterrorism suspect, 42 seconds. Crazy story. So for years, she's like tipping all these terrorists off, I guess. Beginning in 2016, ending 2017, a cell phone number belonging to the subject of a counterterrorism investigation called. Another phone number from a different FBI division investigation. And now investigators have not been able to determine why she contacted these people or why they called her. When confronted, she denied having the home phone number. I don't know who that number is. Denied making and receiving these calls, no explanation as to why. Through the collected toll records, they were able to identify other calls dating back to 2000, including one call that lasted over 38 minutes. Multiple interviews, 4 different email accounts, but she indicated she deleted the contents of one of the emails, denied destroying any evidence, but did admit she periodically destroyed documents that she had taken. Around Labor Day, she said she deleted something that was top secret. Like what, with a cloth? The defendant claimed she destroyed the document by ripping it up, soaking it in water, and putting it down a drain. Oh. Yeah, well, should have called Hillary. That's a good tactic. Could use a hammer, too, on your State Department devices. The defendant told Feeks that she decided to self-report the documents in her home because she felt like she was being followed and under surveillance. She referenced an event that occurred between her daughter and someone at Disneyland that made her destroy a previously owned laptop. Weird. The defendant's daughter, according to the defendant, met a Russian man at Disneyland and they exchanged Facebook information. After they exchanged, the laptop her daughter took to California became wonky. The defendant destroyed the laptop with a hammer. Exactly like Hillary's people. The second interview of the defendant, which was also the last interview of the defendant denied conducting unauthorized searches, but did say she attempted to help a family member by conducting searches, also searched to help law enforcement, denied conducting anything unauthorized or outside her scope of work. But this is all contradicted by the actual evidence. After the indictment was returned, the government offered the defendant opportunities to explain her actions. To mitigate this, she declined to provide them any information. So they go through the factors. They're like, look, sentence her a lot. 386 documents in her home. The nature of the documents did not correlate to her work at the FBI. The phone records show she was talking with counterterrorism suspects. She's got no prior criminal history. She was employed at law enforcement. She knew what she was doing and intentionally violated the rules. She disclosed to save herself. She told us about this, so they didn't even catch her. Her partial disclosure occurred out of a sense of self-preservation. The event that caused her to disclose her illegal activity was the concern that she was being followed and surveilled, all right? So the FBI didn't even catch her. She says, I'm freaked out. The Russians are coming after me. So she told the FBI, right? That's how good our classified document management system is. 10 years. She's whatever she wants with the documents. The defendant exposed the FBI and other government agencies and could have had terrible consequences. Probably will. I mean, I imagine all of this stuff is in somebody else's hands. Like, do they think it's just on her? Do they think it didn't get out or something? Like, wow, we got lucky. No, obviously it's all out. I would imagine every single thing that she had in her possession is out. The defendant knew that unauthorized removal of these materials could endanger national security, and there is no way to know that the defendant retained information was discovered by someone, shared someone, or used. They don't know. Any sentence should take into account the severity of that penalty, and it should be used to deter people from committing this offense again. Was very reckless, extremely reckless disregard, and so we want 57 months and 3 years of supervised release. They got a little bit less than that, but a wild story from Patrick Edwards. So apparently the FBI just leaks like a sieve. I mean, who knows? If this is just one agent, you got to imagine what else is going on over there. So FBI agent sentenced to 3 years for classified documents that she was presumably just handing out like Skittles at Disneyland vacations. Don't know. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground. FBI agent sentenced to prison. First batch of discovery dumped over to Trump's defense team. FBI whistleblower calling out Paul Abbate, and whistleblower from the IRS calling out Joe Biden. Hunter Biden kicked out of a Bang Bang Club, having fun over at the White House. And so that, my friends, is it for us on this early Friday show. Now let's see what you have to say, courtesy of our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and our amazing super chats that came in. And yesterday, Michael Swade sent this one. He said, breaking, Maricopa County and the county recorder, Stephen Richer, is in the House, and Stephen Richer is suing Kari Lake for defamation, which is just appropriate. And so thank you for sending that one in, Michael Swade. Beyond Geostar says, thou needs but have faith. Have faith and all will be well. Love you, brother. Love you back, Beyond Geo. Thank you for being here. Jigum says, don't get me wrong. Jigum sent this one on Locals. Thank you, Jigum. Says, don't get me wrong. I understand the importance of shining that big, beautiful spotlight on this treason, calling it for what it is. And I'm thankful to Rob and everyone here for doing so. But it just sucks the hope out of me, knowing that there won't be any serious equal justice brought upon the Bidens. Never is to the deep state untouchables. The damage they have done to America is immeasurable. Forgive me. I hope they sleep terribly. Well, it's okay to hope they sleep terribly. They're pretty terrible people. And I can understand the feeling of despair and hopelessness, because it does feel like they just go on and on and on without any repercussions. I think we're at the very early stage of this, Jigum. Have some hope. I think we're in like maybe the second inning on this whole thing. And I think that this is just the first domino in a long list of dominoes. And so they'll ultimately be called out. I mean, look, the American people are going to get sick of this at some point. And the glaring hypocrisy, I think, is going to become more and more relevant with time. It's one of those things that takes some time, but we'll get there. And so thank you, Jigum, for sending that in. Jigum, one of our amazing meme smiths over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Yes, and we had Leaf Blower Guy out here, who you probably heard him around here this morning, Leaf Blower Guy, in the house, speaking of memes. And apparently he's also blowing leaves at me, as you can see, which is distracting when we're trying to do a show here. But he comes over here and he comes over there, and we got leaf blower guy in the house. And thank you for that one. Geegum in the house. Rocky Water says, Rob, you rock as always. Can you provide a link to the transcripts? I thought the House Ways and Means Committee had all the whistleblowers docs up on one page, but I can't find them. I was up till 3 last night reading, got through Leaf Blower 1, Leaf Blower 2 interviews. Highly recommend all watchers to read the docs fully. Better than any novel or movie transcript. Yeah, it's just on the House Ways and Means Committee website. They should all still be there, and that's where I got them all. Let's see if we can just see if we can find them. They're there. I mean, I found them. Yeah, it looks like, well, that's an article. They're on the Whistleblowers website. Yeah, I had them in the show notes yesterday. I don't have them handy right now. But they are on the IRS Whistleblower website. All 7 of them were there. Thank you, Rocky Water, for sending that one in. Michael Allen Hughes says, nothing will happen. Mockingbird Media lies to us. Nothing will happen. Mockingbird Media lies to us. From Michael Allen Hughes. Thank you, Michael Allen Hughes. We'll see if they do anything about it. Ray K says, there needs to be a give, send, go to provide 24-hour protection to the whistleblowers. Yeah, I mean, I really feel for that guy. It's like, it's his whole career. Could you imagine working out your whole career and then having everything just kind of like dump on you? Totally stinks. Ray K, thank you for sending that one. Patrick Swagger says, keep up the good work. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you being here, my friend, and for sending that support chat in. We've got Tasmanat says, honestly, how screwed is Trump, though? I understand the legal and the constitutional arguments, but how do you think this all ends, in your opinion? It's too early to tell, Tasmanat. I mean, it's a lot. It's too early to tell. If Trump wins, he can pardon himself. If he doesn't win, he's probably getting convicted. Honestly, that's the outcome. If he wins, he pardons himself and rights the ship. If he loses, he gets convicted, probably on 4 different cases. And what they do with that is going to be a whole separate conversation. I'm not sure that they can put him in physical prison, but I think that they can convict him. And I think that they want to, and they will. So that's a quick and short answer on that. But if he wins, he'll pardon himself on the 2 federal charges, and he'll deal with the state charges. And if he loses, he'll get convicted on all 4 counts. Patrick Parker says, hey, Robert, I know what happens when you lose your security clearance. To lose your clearance is up there with a dishonorable discharge. Man, from Patrick Parker. Well, yeah, and to lose it because the FBI is just, corrupt, and they're not being honest with you. They're just covering this up because they have a political axe to grind. It feels very inappropriate, right? Like Shapley and those guys were doing their jobs. That's all they were doing, is their jobs. And they got, they're getting abused for it. Patrick Parker says, K-Bean, not just that. I used to have clearance for 10 years. It all depends on what crime you commit. From Patrick Parker. 10 years clearance. So he can speak to that. So this idea that when you lose your security clearance, you lose your, it's like a penalty. It's like a dignity type of an offense. Thank you, Patrick. K Bean in the house says, at Patrick Parker, CW2 351B counterintelligence chief warrant officer, 13 years. Combat war veteran. Is that you, K-Bean? Those are your credentials? That's impressive. Whoever's doing that is pretty impressive. So thank you for that one, or for those 2, K-Bean. CW2 351B counterintelligence chief warrant officer, 13 years. Very cool. Combat war veteran. Facts Matter sent this one in. Won't Richer open himself up to discovery that will expose what a corrupt... that is K-Bean. That was K-Bean. K-Bean in the house. I just saw the chat. Wow, amazing. Well, thank you for your service, K-Bean. And that sounds very complicated stuff. Counterintelligence Chief Warrant Officer. Yeah, so you know how this works, and I'm sure you know what that FBI agent was doing. Not all ideal. Facts Matter says, won't Richer open himself up to discovery that will expose what a corrupt, dysfunctional bunch he and his office are? I haven't read his complaint yet. So I think it's probably just a defamation complaint. And it might actually open him up to discovery. Because if Kari Lake is saying, no, what I'm saying about you is true, I need access to prove that it's true. Maybe we'll cover that one. I haven't read it yet. But I just saw his post about it on Twitter. I haven't actually read the complaint yet. But yeah, they have a very bad, dysfunctional office, no doubt about it. Patrick Parker says, and my deepest respect to you, Chief. Well, thank you, Patrick. You're so generous, Patrick. I appreciate that, my friend. Thanks for being here. And we are going to be checking Twitter here before we go over to our locals after party. And locals, I'm going to open up another locals thread in a minute because we're about to expire. So we'll do another one because we still have some comments from yesterday to wrap up. But on Twitter, we had a couple Twitter comments. Deplorable Fred says, next time you do an afternoon call, I want to call Johnny, special counsel to DJ Trump. Next time you do an afternoon show, I want a call Johnny, special counsel to Donald J. Trump. Wow, he's special counsel now? That's amazing. Well, turn your notifications on, Johnny. Deplorable Fred says, not kidding. I feel that I need a shower after this transcript. It's disgusting, I know. Adam says, the leader of the executive branch has failed the American citizens. Failed the American citizens. That's absolutely true. And that's from Deplorable Fred and from Johnny in the house. And I'm very happy right now that I'm watching myself on this live stream. Looking great, Rob. Doing a great job. I'm watching you do the show on Twitter. So shout out to me, my single viewer on Twitter. All right. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And we are going over to locals. And members, join us on Telegram, our YouTube members on Telegram. Join us over there. We had this one come in from the Rubos. The Rubos says, great live stream once again, Rob. You rock. Thank you for all you do to keep us informed. That is from our friends, the Rubos. Thank you to the Rubos. And this one came in from Geegum Geegum. This is K Bean, apparently. This is K Bean. What is a force? Go K Bean. Is that a Jedi? Is that a Jedi? I think it is a Jedi. Okay, and so that, my friends, is it for us on the day, on this lovely Friday. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party. We'd love it if you joined us. YouTube members, don't forget to grab the Telegram link. And we appreciate you joining us because we do member-only morning streams. And tomorrow we'll hit the headlines and see what we have in store. So join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, don't forget to grab your Field of Greens, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com, where you can save 15% off using code Robert at checkout. And if you like this mind map software, if you'd like to use this stuff in your own content or your own business or your own life just to get organized, you can get a free account, spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. I also want to thank the mods and our amazing meme smiths who mod the fort down for us. Big thanks go out to our friends Vienticus Prime, K-Bean, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu is in the house. We have Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me. We've got Sleepy Dogley, Geegum Geegum, and Nathan N810 in the house, all modding down and meme smithing up the place for us. And we're grateful for everybody who makes this show possible. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We covered a lot of ground, and we're grateful that you joined us as we went through it all. We are going over for our brief after party on locals and on Telegram, and so we'd love it if you joined us there, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Come and check us out. Otherwise, my friends, thank you for being here today and this week with us. It was a busy week. We covered a lot, but it's now time to unplug for the weekend so that we can recharge our batteries, rejuvenate our minds, and come back here on Monday to do it all again so that together with your help, we can shine that big big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Make it a beautiful weekend. I'll see you right back here on the next one. Bye-bye.